Okay, so today we talked about interval and set builder notation. Number one says this number line graph would be best described by which statement. So the two closed circles mean that we need to have less than or equal to signs, and A does not have less than or equal to, so that has to be out. Less than or equal to also means brackets. So over here we've got -7 to -1, that's correct. And then open circle means parentheses. So from 3 to 7 with a bracket, okay? Because closed means bracket and open means parentheses. So it looks like B is our answer. Which inequality is the correct statement for the interval? Well, we've got -2 to 1 and we're not including because we don't have the little bar underneath. So this is going to be parenthesis to parenthesis. So that means that A has to be out because it's got a bracket. We've got parenthesis to parenthesis, and then we've got another one which means we have a union. So these two are possibilities, but this one has, C has a bracket, so C can't be the answer. And then if we want everything greater than 1, we want to go from 1 to infinity, and infinities always use parentheses, so B would be our answer. Number 3 says, which statement below is correct interval notation for the situation depicted in the number graph? Okay, so if it's a closed circle, it's got to be a bracket, and open circle has to be a parentheses. So these two are switched, so A is not it. We need bracket to parentheses. This is bracket to bracket, so since it's not a parentheses at the -5, the B is out. And then here we need -9 to -5. We need a bracket at the -9 and a parentheses at the -5, so that's good. And then when we do the union, we want everything greater than 0, which means we want to go from 0 all the way to infinity. And since it's a greater than with no equal to underneath, we want a parenthesis here, and then infinities always have parentheses. So C would be the answer, because that works too. All right, number 4, which is the correct statement for the inequality? All right, if we're going from -infinity, so imagine a number line, you're coming up from -infinity and you're going to -3, which means you want all the numbers that are less than -3. You don't want the numbers bigger because you're coming from -infinity, from the left side up to the right. So we want everything less than, which means A would be out. So B is okay. And then our union tells us that we want to go from 0 to 2 and we want to include 0, which means there should be an equal to. Remember that brackets are for the equal to's, parentheses are for the ones that don't have the equal to's. So this would be out. And then we want greater than or equal to 4 because we want 4 to infinity. So that would be all the numbers bigger than 4. So C is your answer. On the back, it says, what is the difference between the number lines of the two intervals? And notice that the only difference is that this has a parentheses and this has a bracket. Remember, bracket means closed circle. Okay, so it means this. And parentheses means an open circle, or not including. So the first graph has an open, unshaded circle at 2, and the second graph has a closed, shaded circle at 2. That looks exactly like what we just decided was the answer. So A would be our answer. There is a difference, and this is backwards. All right, number 6, given the graph of f of x below, find on what intervals of x is f of x decreasing. So we're trying to figure out where is this graph decreasing as opposed to increasing. So if you notice, we're going to be coming, these are arrows. So that means that it's coming from infinity and it's going to infinity. So from -infinity, and we always use parentheses with infinity, up to this point right here, this whole part right here is decreasing. So from -infinity, that arrow tells us -infinity, up to -3, and we want to include -3, it is decreasing. And then the other spot where it's decreasing is this spot right here, which is actually from 0 to, what is that, 3? So also from 0 to 3, including both of those. Now again, it asked what intervals of x, so we're going to be using the x-axis to tell our numbers. Okay, so that's why we did negative infinity to negative 3, and that's why we did 0 to 3, because we were looking on the x-axis, because it asked on which intervals of x. Okay, part B said on which intervals of x is it positive. So we want y to be positive, which means that's the entire thing. The entire thing is positive, because if y is positive, that means it's all the numbers that are above 0, that direction. Those are all the positive y's. So that's the entire graph, which means from negative infinity all the way to positive infinity, that graph is positive for the y values. Okay, so again, we were looking for where it was above the x-axis because we wanted positive y's. Said f of x, which is y, so on what intervals of x is y positive? And it's the whole thing. It's from here all the way to there that it's positive. For letter C, it says, what is f of 0? So when x is 0, because remember it's f of x, so this is like saying when x is 0. So when x is 0, what is y? And y would be 3. And what does this value represent for the function? It represents the y-intercept. When f of x is equal to 0, x is equal to what? So this time it's when y is equal to 0, so that would be on these 2 points, and that would be at positive 3 and at negative 3. And that represents the x-intercept. So this was changing it around and going instead of when x is 0, what's y? Now it's when y is 0, what is x?